Okay, so here we are in the Allied Hall at the Saumur Tank Museum. Really nice collection of classic Allied vehicles here. So we'll start off with some light stuff. This is the Greyhound armoured car. Lovely little American armoured car, very futuristic looking, really 1950s looking thing. Number of different variants of this. Saw good service across Europe. Moving on to another American design. Well, this is a Staghound armoured car. I saw a lot of use by both the Canadian and British forces during the battle for Europe. And we move up a little bit, we've got a Stuart light tank. Classic little reconnaissance vehicle. Moving on. We've got the M8, which is another version of a Stuart. This is the M8, which is a little house. Fitted on the top there, same chassis, as you'll see. I'm going to move up into the tank destroyer. So this is an M10, this is a real beauty, this one. So we can take a bit of a closer look at her. The British version of this was the Achilles. Really good, solid tank destroyer. The only problem with it, as you can probably see, is it was made open-topped. So it was great unless there was an air raid, or you've been fired on from above, or someone was using some kind of airburst weapon, in which case the crew can have a pretty tough time with it. Now we've got my favourite tank of the Second World War, the classic, the Sherman. God knows how many variants of this there were. There were at least 4 main groups of variants. It had every kind of variation, but this has got to be the classic World War II tank. Massive advantage it had a gyro stabilised gun, but it was the only tank on the battlefield. The Germans didn't have this, so it could actually fire quite accurately on the move. Yeah, and you could, you know, with thousands and thousands of these things produced. So where the Germans had over-engineered, this was a beautiful compromise, and it was a beautiful compliment to the American motor industry and their ability to mass produce. A very early version as we look back. This is the Grant tank, so this was the M3. First saw service with the British in North Africa, but not particularly a good tank. As you'll see, 2 types of gun. There was a 75mm and a 37mm in the turret. Big trouble with this in the desert. It was the height of the thing, so there's a family here, look at this fella. You can see the height of the thing, so in the desert, that had a massive profile. Far too tall, and the twin gun thing didn't really work either. It was a bit of a confused beast. Now, this is a really interesting gallery of British armour here. So let's start off with this Valentine. So Valentine, very small tank, beautiful, light, fast, early war tank. Valentines are all over the place. Very, very cool, light tank, but very, very quickly outmanoeuvred. Later on, these would become the chassis for a load of anti-aircraft guns, because there was nothing else to do with them. I'll just have a little wide down. Now this is probably, although the Sherman's my favourite World War II tank, this is my favourite British tank, the Matilda. So when the war opened, this is kind of the best we had. Actually quite heavily armoured, and in North Africa for quite some time she was the queen of the battlefield. Nothing the Germans had could touch her. That all went south on us very quickly though. As the German technology advanced, this is a really beautiful tank. I modelled one of these a few years ago as well, and it's just an absolute pleasure. That really is a thing of beauty. But again, at its time very quickly and was surpassed by the rise in British armour. This is the Crusader anti-aircraft version. This is again Crusader, and was one of the cruiser variants of tanks, saw a lot of service in the desert. And again, like a lot of these older tanks, you'll see this was adapted to an anti-aircraft role for use during Normandy and the war in the fight for Europe, because the actual tank base had been circumvented, and there were better tanks on the market. Now these are quite cool. This is one of the grants that we looked at earlier. This is converted, and maybe two versions of this. Is a self-propelled gun. This is a Sexton, and there's another version called the Bishop. That was all because it was like you were standing at a lectern when you were mounting one of these. So just going to have a look at some other variants. So here, really interesting vehicle. This is a Centaur. So this vehicle came into service with us really on D-Day, and this was a marine support tank. The idea it was designed to support the infantry at the landings. Tragically though, I think there were about 50 of these, and only about 20 of them made it on shore. So again, it's a lovely looking vehicle, but didn't really work out too well in the real world. And again, I keep saying I've got favourite tanks and not favourite tanks, but you'd be hard pushed to beat this absolute beauty. Look at this. This is a Churchill. So even throughout Normandy, D-Day Normandy, this was probably our heaviest armoured tank. Quite an amazing beast. Loads of variants. This is an early war Churchill, but we'll see later war versions such as the Churchill Crocodile, which was a flamethrower version that was used in Normandy. It's a great effect, and it used to tow like a little trailer full of an inflammable liquid. I won't say napalm, that's a modern term. And this thing would squirt this liquid flame about 120 yards. Quite often the Germans saw that coming, they'd just turn tail and flee or surrender. One of the other amazing things about this was it could climb. If you look at the tank tracks, it's almost like a World War I vehicle in its own way with the layout of the tracks. So this thing could climb a really high gradient, a really high hill. Heavily armoured at the front, as you can see. But again, soon outclassed by the German armour and the penetrative capabilities of those German guns. So jumping to the end of the Second World War, this was the best beast that we could put on the field. This was the Comet. Only saw limited service right in 1945, though this was an amalgamation of all of our technologies put together. So it's got a nice heavy hitting gun, a good armoured package, good drive, good transmission, good fast mobile, armoured, and capable of packing a real punch. So it had that kind of the three things you're interested in a tank. So Harold Hamilton Taylor, who I had the pleasure of meeting, an old tank veteran, he was driving one of these right at the end of the war, and he took out a Tiger and a Stug using this. So that's as good as it got for us right at the end of the war. Could have done with a bit of beginning, but that's wars for you. It takes a long time to work out what you need. So just moving down the line here again, they've got a really nice little Russian section here. I don't know who stuck that Pak 40 in there, cheeky buggers. Little German anti-tank gun. So look at this. This is an Su-100. So this is a tank destroyer, a Russian tank destroyer. It's done a really nice job at this. 75mm gun on it, and it's quite a gun on it as well. Let's have a little look. There you go. Yeah, nice little diorama they've done here as well. Kind of eastern front. Then over here, again, we've got a really nice diorama actually. They've got nice work in this museum. So this is a KV-1, I believe. So we talk about the Russian defence of the Soviet Union and the German Operation Bagration. The Germans, when they first met this bugger, were terrified. Really, really heavily armoured. If you look at that turret in detail, you can see the welds there. Just those big castings of that armour. So it took a lot to take out the KV-1. There was also KV-2, which had a much heavier turret on it. Yeah, lovely little diorama. This looks like it's shed a track. I like the birds up in the rafters watching them. Yeah, nice touch. And then just to finish off, some little armoured cars. So this is a Dingo. Beautiful little reconnaissance vehicle. I'm sure you've seen these in the bridge too far. Hummer. Similarly, nice little reconnaissance vehicle. And just as a real nod to the past, the Vickers. So when it all kicked off for us, at the beginning of the war. This is basically what a British tank looked like. They were crap. We had no kind of investment in tank technology between the wars as such, and this was basically what we'd filled on day one. Anyway, that's a little whistle-stop tour of the Allied Hall at Saumur. Quick one, this is a little American anti-aircraft gun. You might remember this from Kelly's Hero. They had it mounted in the back of an American armoured personnel carrier in the barn scene. Nice little American ambulance here as well. Quite iconic, but been marked up with the Free French colours. And then just to finish off, what better place to finish off than with an American Jeep? But first off, there's a little baby duck. So this is a Jeep version of the duck. Amphibious vehicle. You know the big ducks from D-Day, which are capable of crossing the channel. This is just a little version. And we sold a load of these, funnily enough, the Americans sold a load of these to the Russians on the Lend-Lease programme, so they were particularly well suited to the Russian environment. And there you go. We'll finish off with a nice little American Jeep, used by us, used by the Americans, and used by the Germans when they could get their hands on them, because they're such a good vehicle. Really popular with collectors, really iconic. And I think the biggest British reference to this will obviously be a market garden and the airborne landings where we glided a load of these in. Some of them made it, some of them didn't. And this one's got a nice little anti-tank gun on the end. So there you go. That is the Allied Hall at Saumur, and it's lovely, very much like the German Hall. They've got all the classic vehicles here, and they've done a great job of maintaining and restoring them. Bye for now.